Hello, I'm Janet Pregler. I'm the director of the Iris Cantor-UCLA Women's Health Center, and welcome to our Discovery video. We're really excited to talk to you about our research on women's health and sex and gender-based medicine here at the center. When I started my career 25 years ago, we really thought of women's health in a very binary way. We thought that there were men and there were women. We knew that medical research had ignored women in many cases, and also that women's experiences in the healthcare system were often problematic. Now, 25 years later, our thoughts about this have really expanded. It's still the concept of women and one's gender, being a woman, is still very important to many people. We also know that how society views an individual, if society views an individual as a woman, that impacts their health. But we also now understand that differences in sex affect all people. So understanding the effect of X and Y chromosomes, hormones like estrogen and progesterone are important in improving the health of everyone, no matter how they identify. In this video, you're going to hear from our research mentors who are going to describe to you the research opportunities at the center. But the one thought I want to leave you with is, if these opportunities seem compelling to you, fantastic. Please contact us. We want to talk to you. But if you have an interest in women's health, in sex and gender-based medicine, or in health disparities, please, if you haven't found the research that you want to do yet, contact us. We can often connect you. The other point that I would make is that among this group is a really awesome basic science mentor. So we know that many people come to our center looking for health disparities research or clinical research, which is great, and we have those opportunities. But please tell anyone who's looking for a great basic science mentor, they can find that with us as well.
Hello, my name is Andrea Heavener, and I'm a professor of medicine in the Division of Endocrinology, Diabetes, and Hypertension. Have you ever wondered why women have a reduced incidence of cardiometabolic disease prior to menopause compared with men? And are you intrigued by the observations that physical activity can delay and often prevent cardiometabolic disease? And how does this happen on the cellular level? And have you ever considered what would happen to the rates of morbidity and mortality in this country if we could simply reduce disruptions in metabolic health? These are some of the questions that drive research in my laboratory. And so to interrogate these research questions, my laboratory performs translational work in humans, rodents, and cells, and we're actively engaged in studying transcription factors and their role in regulating metabolism and insulin sensitivity, with a specific focus on the impact of estrogen receptors in the control of mitochondrial function and health, the mitochondria being the powerhouse of the cell. But these mitochondria, they do so much more than ATP production. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Estrogen receptor expression levels are as critical in men as they are in women, and they mediate much of the metabolic health benefit that's associated with exercise training. So based upon our clinical observations and our studies in rodent models, our research suggests that manipulation of estrogen receptor expression levels could be of therapeutic value in combating metabolic-related diseases. Now, to achieve our research aims, we rely heavily on mouse genetics and a variety of tools and leading-edge technologies. Because we're an interdisciplinary research team, we are highly collaborative, which is quite a lot of fun. We leverage the expertise of numerous physician scientists across the UCLA campus. My laboratory is highly funded by the National Institutes of Health, and we publish in high-impact journals, including Nature Medicine and Science Translational Medicine. I have over 2 decades of mentoring experience. I've been involved in medical education for over a decade, and I'm actively and aggressively involved in career mentoring of physician scientists at all academic steps. So why would you want to come conduct research in the Heavener Laboratory? Well, we have a lot of fun. We're also a very rigorous, interdisciplinary, and translationally oriented research laboratory. We're highly productive, and we foster a really unique environment that's going to allow for a thrilling scientific discovery. So I look forward to meeting you, and I thank you for your time.
I'm Dr. Barbara Natterson Horowitz, and I'm offering a research opportunity for students who are interested in women's health, cardiovascular health, and applying a broadly comparative and evolutionary perspective to contemporary human medical disorders. My work is based on the premise that the field of medicine has been very anthropocentric, but by expanding the window through which we perceive health and disease to include the at least 10 million other species with whom we share the earth, and then to expand that window one more time to consider the evolutionary history that lead to the similarities and differences between humans and non-human animals, we can better understand the cause of disease, and we can be better at biomedical innovation. We know that human medicine has also been very male-focused, androcentric, and again, by being more gender-spanning and sex-spanning, we can not only see and understand much more, we can be more equitable in our practices. So my own background is that I'm a clinical cardiologist and academic cardiologist. I began consulting for zoos over 15 years ago. And in the course of that experience, encountered many connections between the health of women and non-human female animals. This is a lion who had suspected metastatic breast cancer. And so the research opportunity that I'm offering falls under the Female Health Across the Tree of Life initiative. There are two types of projects, one which deal with shared vulnerability across female animals, and the other with biodiversity as a source of innovation. The first set of projects will be looking at issues related to breast cancer in wild animals and in domestic animals, other female, endometrial pathologies and ovarian carcinoma as well in human and non-human animals. We'll be building these models, we'll be building phylogenies to characterize and scientifically communicate our findings. The other series of projects have to do with looking at the other species on Earth as a source of evolved adaptations that may confer resistance to these animals, resistance to major challenges in women's health. So, for example, we'll be looking at some species that avoid reproductive senescence, that reproduce over the course of centuries, unlike women, human females. Some bears and other species that are resistant to inactivity related osteopenia and osteoporosis. And we'll be focusing on the giraffe as a natural animal model for resistance to the adverse effects of systemic hypertension, focusing particularly on pregnant giraffes as well as adaptations in giraffe that appear to confer resistance to heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, a leading cause of heart failure in our species. If you are interested in women's health, cardiovascular health, and a broadly comparative and evolutionary perspective, I think you'll find this research opportunity interesting, and I'd love to share more with you. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Heather McCrease, and I'm an adjunct professor in the Division of Geriatrics at UCLA. I'm trained in social and environmental psychology, but have always had a great interest in health disparities and trying to understand the root of those disparities. I've had experience with a wide range of research projects, many of them large observational epidemiologic studies. And I have also had the opportunity to teach a course on applied data collection and analysis in the Master of Science in Clinical Research program. Last summer, I was able to work with two of the medical students through this program, and we had a great time working together. We looked at one of the large studies sponsored by NIH called the Midlife in the US study, and we looked at two different questions around health disparities. That's the kind of project that I would think that we would work on this coming year. We'll have much more time to dig into some of the interesting questions. I hope to also share my expertise in data management and data analysis. I look forward to talking with you further.
Okay, hi, I am Dr. Kimberly Narayan. I'm currently an assistant professor in the Division of General Internal Medicine, and health services research. In terms of my background working with fellows and students, I have a lot of different roles. I currently work with our National Clinician Scholars Fellows doing some of their introductory research training, particularly in the area of conceptual model development, literature review structure. I've also worked with medical students for the past 2 years doing an intensive research training course where we spend a lot of time understanding just how to go about asking a research question. How do you think about study design? And then how do you really think about what sort of statistical approaches to choose given your broader topic, given the study design, and then to a much lesser extent, going into the statistical actual sort of software pieces, but we do a lot more focus on actually study design. I have focused a lot in the context of my mentorship on women's health issues, particularly thinking about the role of social, economic, and health interventions, particularly policies. So just to name a couple of examples of projects that I've been involved with students, one thing we've done is we've looked at the role of state earned income tax credits on actual nutrition behaviors, particularly among single mothers. And we've explored these different roles across race and ethnicity as well. Other topics that we've broached include the implications of self-employment for women's health, particularly looking at whether or not or essentially trying to understand if having more flexibility, more autonomy, and potentially less exposure to, microaggressions might in fact have better impacts on women's health in the context of self-employment. And so all the students that I've worked with have successfully developed these research projects. They successfully presented abstracts. One of my students that I've worked with was actually nominated for a Best Student Abstract at the Academy Health Conference that takes place annually. And another one of the students that I've worked with actually has a manuscript that has come about as a part of this work that is currently undergoing review. So hopefully we'll be hearing some feedback on that, with hopefully some good news of a publication. And I think it's really, really important that students come away from working with me understanding what is the criteria for a strong research question. How do you go about figuring that out? And then once you develop a strong research question, the question becomes, how do you think about developing a research design that will allow you to generate the most believable and the most impactful results that you can, given the limitations of your data or what have you. And then another important piece, I think, is how do you communicate your research so you have the most important impact that you actually can. So thinking about who your audience is, thinking about what that target audience doesn't know, and thinking about what it is that they want to know, and how do you structure your results in a way that's most appealing to them. So once again, your work can have the biggest impact possible. So really, I'm hoping that students take away what are those strategies, and so how can they be applied in different contexts, so they can just continue to grow with some of these approaches and see them be practical in no matter what context they end up using them in their future.
Well, hello. I'm Dr. Teresa Seaman. I am a professor here at UCLA with joint appointments in medicine in the Division of Geriatrics. as well as in public health and epidemiology. I'm trained as a social epidemiologist with primary research interests in the role of social and behavioral factors in patterns of aging. Most of my research has focused on looking at data from large longitudinal studies of populations and looking at longitudinal analyses of the roles of social, psychological, behavioral kinds of variables as they may predict different trajectories of aging in terms of differences in the onset of various chronic conditions, differences in patterns of physical function, as well as cognitive function. Some of the big studies that I've worked on include the Midlife in the US, MIDAS, the Health and Retirement Survey, HRS, the multi-ethnic study of atherosclerosis, MESA, which is actually one of the sites is here at UCLA. Dr. Carol Watson in cardiology is the PI for the UCLA site. I've done a lot of work with that study. And also the coronary artery risk development in young adults, the CARDIA study. And that's become of particular interest because the study started in 1985, at which time these were young adults. But they are now well into their 50s and 60s, and so are of increasing interest to people such as myself who study aging. In addition to my research, I do a lot of teaching, primarily research methods. I teach as part of the School of Medicine's Master's in Clinical Research program. Historically, it was mostly people who are post-residency or even post-fellowship. But more recently, we've had a number of medical students who've been taking the course and getting master's degrees, and I've worked with a number of those people on their research projects. In addition to students from those classes, I've also worked with various med students as well as postdocs and undergrads on various research projects, primarily people who were interested in aging and interested in doing analyses of data from studies that I was involved in. And so I would help to guide them in terms of teaching people how to do various kinds of analyses, and then working with students on presentations. A number of the students I've worked with have presented at annual or professional meetings, and also working on actually manuscripts for publication in many cases. So I'm very excited about this new arrangement at UCLA for this Discovery Year. Looking forward to meeting students who may be interested in collaborating and working with us on various questions related to gender and aging. And my role in the Discovery Year team would be working with Dr. McCreath and Dr. Greendale in particular around helping students who have an interest in some of the projects that they are going to be supporting. So I look forward to meeting some of you and getting to know those who are interested in research on aging. Thank you.
Thanks very much for listening to our video. Again, if you have interest in any of our research opportunities, or you'd like to talk more about women's health, sex and gender-based research, or basic science research in these areas, please contact us. This is our website with contact information to send your CV and a letter of interest, or just to send a question so that we can start a conversation. Thanks for your interest in women's health and sex and gender-based medicine.